Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's episode 280 of the Audible Farm Podcast, and this episode is brought to you by the Fort Dodge Fine Arts Association. The Fort Dodge Fine Arts Association is all about supporting and connecting local artists, musicians, and creators right here in north central Iowa. Head over to fdfineartsassociation.org to find their community calendar packed with upcoming concerts, art shows, theater events, and more. While you're there, check out their podcast, FDT. It's available wherever you listen to podcasts. That's the Fort Dodge Fine Arts Association, celebrating creativity and community in the Fort Dodge area. This week, I'm sitting down with Matt Woods. He's been on the podcast before, and he's a blues guitarist from Iowa. He's put out multiple albums. He's played all across Iowa, outside of the state. He's been on the cover of magazines, believe it or not. We talk a little bit about that. It's been a while since he's been on the podcast, so we have to do a little catch up here. He's got a new album out. He's got a new set of songs that have come out that aren't quite an album, at least since the last time we talked to him. There's been a lot going on. So this one's going to be super good. I always love talking to Matt Woods because I'll tell you what, even if he's one of those guys that can sway you into feeling like, oh, I definitely understand where you're coming from. Even if you may not fully want to admit that that's what you like, if that's not what you would do, you still oh, yeah, I get that. And that's one of the reasons I love talking to him. I before and after the episode, we were discussing a little bit. It's that's one of my favorite things to talk to Matt about. He's kind of a dry humor kind of guy, and that's awesome. It comes out in other interviews too, and that's one of the reasons I know it's not just me, it's just who he is, and it's super fun to get to know him. So I hope you guys enjoy this episode because we talk about a lot of deep stuff in here and a lot of stuff that's not super deep. So I hope you guys enjoy this a lot. This is episode number 280 with Matt Woods.
It's the Audible Farm Podcast with your host, Peter Stockdale.
I'm sitting down with Matt Woods today. Matt, you were on the podcast in 2020 and 2021, and that was it. I can't believe you've only been on here twice.
I can't believe it either. What's going on?
I don't know. It just seems like more than that. I mean, maybe it's because I run into you a lot. Because
seems like more than that, yeah.
Yeah, because I head to your shows and stuff like that. For those that don't know, Matt is a blues guitarist, and a very unique one at that. You have a different style than what most people would consider just your normal blues guys. That's kind of what everybody learns to start out with, but you're a little bit more advanced than that, let's say.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Good. Okay. Great interaction. You were at Shiny Top recently, which I missed because I was doing something else, but I bet at 8:30, right before the show was over, you were just looking at the door waiting for me to come in, weren't you?
Well, I waited as long as I could, but eventually we had to carry on without you.
For those who don't know, I usually show up to Matt Woods' shows just a touch late. It always happens, and he always gives me crap for it, but this one I missed. Otherwise, yeah, so since you've been on last, I do want to say that there was a 3-year running, it was probably around the time you're on the podcast, maybe 2021 to 2024, you were the most played person I had on Spotify, which is odd. It's odd. I'm not saying that to be yeah, it's way to go, man, but it seems weird. I don't necessarily see myself always going to your music, but apparently I play it more than anyone else's, which is pretty cool. I don't know.
And you probably play it more than anyone else in the world. So appreciate that.
Oh, come on. You did have a recent release though. I don't know if I want to call it an album. I saw your interview on the Guitar Department with Joe Alton, which we'll go back to that in a second, but you had mentioned it's 9 singles. What's up with that, singles versus an album?
Well, there's a lot of reasons for it, I guess, but the bottom line is you can't really sell music anymore. People ain't buying. So instead of going through the trouble of making a whole album and making CDs or vinyl or whatever, we just kind of decided to record some of our the band decided to record some of the songs that we really enjoy playing live, and then just sort of put it out on the internet individually for whoever is interested in it.
Nice. Yeah, I recently went through and listened to those. I listened to them again after I watched your episode with on the guitar department not too long ago. But yeah, I mean, it's really kind of cool to hear your take on these songs. I went and peeled into a couple of them and tried to find like other versions that other people had tried to like, play. I guess like I'm not familiar enough with like blues stuff, but like, do you usually play songs the way that they are traditionally played, I guess?
Not necessarily. It's just kind of however it comes out, really. I mean, it's sort of a vehicle for me and the other musicians I work with to express ourselves, right? So it can be different from night to night. It can start out one way, and if we play the song for, every night for 2 years, it's going to be very different, down the road than when we started playing it too. So it just kind of, to answer your question, no, it just kind of comes out the way it is, I guess. Not a whole lot of, we don't think about it that much,
Is that how it happens in the studio? Like, do you guys all play at the same time and then record it that way, or do you do it?
Usually, so that project of singles, we did that. I actually had, I had a few hours of studio time at Sonic Factory Studios in Des Moines, and we went in and recorded all nine songs in about 3 hours.
Wow.
And then another hour to mix them, and I got it all done in 4 hours. So yeah, we were all playing live in the studio together.
That's cool. Is that how you usually like to do things?
Usually, yeah. That's how I prefer to do it. And then there's always some exceptions. Like that's with my own stuff. Obviously, I work as a studio musician where I'm kind of at the whim of whatever producer's on the session about what parts I'm going to play and things like that. But for my own stuff, I like to go in and do it like that. And occasionally you'll need to punch in some parts here or there, but for the most part, it's all done live. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. So you do some studio work.
Yeah.
Where do you do that at? Is that?
Well, wherever. I mean, I mean, countless sessions for different people. Sometimes I do it locally here in a studio where I am, and it kind of gets shipped to them, for lack of a better term. Or I'll go to whatever studio I need to do that, to do that.
That's pretty wild. I guess I didn't know that was something you did. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a whole different kind of thing than being a live performer. It's a very different skill set, and it's something that I've kind of worked hard to develop along with being a good live performer. Tried to get as competent as possible at being a good studio musician too.
Yeah, like studio stuff is
muscle. It's a very different muscle to use in your brain,
Oh, for sure. I mean, that's why there's so many cheats and hacks to it now, where everything can be quantized. But I remember like the first time sitting down in a studio and like just tinkering and being like, "This will be good," and then you like listen back and you're like, "That is trash," It's the tape does not lie.
No, tape doesn't lie, and red light fever is a real thing. So when that red light comes on and you're expected to get it right, that can be intimidating. So I've tried really hard over the years to do that as much as possible, so that sort of nervousness or whatever in that situation goes away.
Yeah, I mean you're 100% correct too, because I can tell you like how many times I've like recorded something, and then like as soon as you're not recording, you're just like goofing off, and you're like, that was better than anything I played the whole time.
I think we all do that. Yeah, I've never sounded better than when I'm like just like on my couch at home and nobody's paying attention.
That's awesome. Speaking of that, I remember watching a lot of your videos. You'd just be like jamming out and just playing stuff and on your couch basically at home, like playing around. I was at work today and somebody was like, I'm going to go talk to Matt Woods after work. And they're like, well, who's that? And I was like, oh, he's this blues guitarist. You got to check him out. So they pulled up a song and it was like you playing V8 Ford, like live, just like in your little studio room or whatever. And they were like, just like, holy crap, this is crazy. This guy's doing it like right here. It's a lot of sound coming out of one person. It was
just down the road, right?
It's pretty funny. Yeah. They've never heard of you. And now they're like, literally we're like, I'm pulling them up on Spotify and whatever. And it's
good. Yeah, now they're listening to my music for free, right?
Oh my gosh.
Thanks, Pete.
All right, the interview's over. This is great.
No, I mean the whole idea is to just, you can't really fight. You can't fight modern, the modern way people consume music. It's like, why even worry about it? So I'm just happy that when I can get any kind of ears on it, anymore. Like I said, since you can't really sell the stuff, it's nice just to have people listen. So I do appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, And that's where it comes down to, like, you got to find, as musicians, it's so weird. If you want to be a musician, you kind of have to be everything other than the musician you want to be in order to, like, make money doing what you want to do, if that makes any sense. I mean, like, maybe it's just because you and I mean, like, I'm going to pigeonhole myself and not you. Maybe it's because I'm a little bit older and I remember buying CDs and things like that. So I think, like, full albums still in my brain are the thing to do. And now I just think, like, everything's a shortcut, if that makes sense. But, like, you can't fight the machine. I don't know. I just have this, like, I don't know. I'm just, like, hearkening back to a better day. And it just...
Oh, for sure.
Like,
yeah. No, I'm the same way. And I bet I'm even older than you, Pete. So I remember making a good bit of my living just from selling music at gigs.
Wow.
Literally selling physical CDs and making more than you would make, just being paid for the gig.
And that's pretty
now that's like, I make $0 selling music. I mean, occasionally somebody will buy something, but it's like, certainly not enough to sustain, at least for me. Maybe I'm just small time or whatever, but I think a lot of other sort of DIY musicians that aren't on some big record label or whatever deal with that same kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, I think about, like, with, like, the punk band I play with down in Des Moines, like, I know a lot of people that bought the CD. Like, we went through quite a few, but, the last album we had, over the course of 3 or 4 years, but it's still, like, I think about every CD I've bought from every band, and this is nothing against any of them, but, like, if your music's on Spotify, I'm going to listen to it there. I just bought the CD as, like, the physical thing to buy, and now it's just sitting in a box. So I don't ever actually listen to the CD, if that makes any sense.
Well, once they stopped putting CD players in cars, that was the death of that business, in my opinion. Yeah,
I mean, I still have an old enough car with a CD player, but, like, other than that, I think I only have, like, one other item in the house that would play a CD. Mm-hmm. Believe it or not, that's crazy. Yep. I didn't even think about that.
It's like having a VCR or something,
Yeah. I mean, pretty much. So that is pretty crazy to know you've been at it this long to have seen that big change. Like, what are some of the things you're doing to mitigate? Like, this is going to sound crazy, and I don't want to, like, call you out, but, like, are you able to charge more for playing music now than you were back then, or is it still just about even keel with the economy, I guess?
Well, yeah, I try to. I mean, I've raised my rates over the years, mostly because, things are just more expensive, right? So why shouldn't I get paid more? And honestly, and also, as every year goes by, I become, more and more experienced. And just like if you're a plumber or a carpenter or something like that, you should, once you become like a journeyman, you should be getting paid more. And so I kind of consider myself to that sort of point in my career. I've been doing it long enough now. And I've lost probably a lot of gigs, but there's just those kind of gigs I'm just not willing to do anymore. I'd rather play. Again, just not to be on my soapbox or whatever, but it's like I've played enough gigs and paid enough dues in that world that if I play less but make more per gig, I'm okay with that. In my early 20s or whatever, I would just take whatever I can, wherever I can, for however much I could get it, just to play. But, thousands and thousands of gigs later, it's like I don't really feel the desire to do that. Plus, I'm in a different phase of life. I have a family I need to, be here for. I want to coach my son's teams and just be a dad and a husband and things like that. So it's kind of been a natural weeding out process, I guess, for some of those lower paying gigs. And if a place, I do, I try to keep my rates reasonable, but I also need to keep up with the times. I mean, stuff doesn't get any cheaper. And so if I lose certain gigs because of that, then so be it.
Yeah, it's like the circle of life, though. It's like as you become more talented at your job, you're leaving a lower paying job for a higher, and now somebody can come in and take that lower paying job that is maybe training or learning. So it's just, you're just opening up an opportunity for somebody else in the back end. What's really fun, though, like and this is going to make me sound ignorant, but it took me a while to realize, like, I can play less gigs and charge just slightly more, and then more people will probably attend those gigs because they're less frequent, instead of just being like, well, I'm playing here Tuesday, and then I'm playing 3 blocks away on Friday, and then I'm playing down the street on the next Saturday. So instead of just packing all the shows in and just kind of getting a little bit of people trickling in here and there, It took me a while to learn that. For a long time, even though somebody said it, I was like, no, I'm playing all the shows everywhere, all the time. I don't care how much they are. And it took me a long time to like, maybe it's maturity, maybe it's just getting older. I don't know, but
yeah, I think it's experience and perspective, right? Like a lot of things, but I would agree with you. I mean, especially in a small market, which, you know, anything here in Iowa is going to be considered a small market, you know, even if you're in Des Moines or whatever. It's like, when I started out, I think I very much sort of oversaturated myself in the area, you know. And as I've gotten further along, I travel a lot more, and that's great. So when I do local gigs, it's kind of certainly a nice thing for me, and hopefully people that get a chance to, you know, go see it or whatever think it's kind of a nice thing. But yeah, that oversaturation in any given area is a real thing. Because people just won't. They're like, well, I can see him next week or anytime or whatever, so I'm not going to go out of my way, you know.
Yeah, I mean, they'll literally just be like, well, I bought bread yesterday, so I'm going to make toast instead today. Right. You know, it'll just be like any excuse they can find.
Getting my haircut, yeah.
Yeah, that's me. I'm getting my haircut, yeah. Holy cow. So this new album, is that you and the trio then? You and it's Patrick and Dwight, right? Patrick Recob and Dwight Dario?
Yep, Matt Woods band, yep. Okay. Patrick Recob and Dwight Dario, yep.
Yeah, you've been with Dwight for quite a while. I remember seeing you with him. Maybe like recently you joined up with Patrick, maybe last year or something like that?
Yeah, Pat joined the band probably, I mean, it's like anything in Fred, it's longer than you think now. So probably, I bet he's been full-time with us for 3 years.
Oh, wow.
A little bit. Yeah.
That's wild. I remember... Now, it's been so long now that I remember watching you with the other bassist, but I don't remember.
Yeah, Eric Gockel was the original bass player, who's just recently found out he's being inducted into the Iowa Blues Hall of Fame. So congratulations!
Whoa.
Eric's a great bass player, but he left the band a few years ago, and Patrick was able to sort of fill his spot.
How'd you end up running into meeting up with Patrick Recob?
We'd just known each other from the scene for years. So we'd worked together in other bands sort of on and off. You know, I always knew he'd be a great fit for my band, but the geography was obviously an issue, but we sat down and had some talk about it, and it was something that we were willing to deal with moving forward because we got along so well personally and musically, and it was a great fit. So we just sort of, you know, decided we would work with that.
That's awesome.
You know, work around the problem.
So meeting up with Patrick Recob, does that open you up to a new market down in Kansas City, or is that a place you've already played before?
I'd kind of been in that market before, but it's definitely good to have sort of an anchor down there, and he obviously knows a lot of people in that scene, and so it has definitely helped my, you know, personal reach a little bit through him. Yeah. And it gives us a good kind of for routing, it makes things nice in a lot of ways. If I go down that direction, I stay with him, and you know, obviously if he comes up here, he can stay with Dwight or myself or whatever. So it gives us some options for, you know, places to stay when we're trying to route or something like that. How
about for rehearsing though? How does that work out? Do you guys do a whole lot of rehearsals?
I wouldn't know. Yeah, I wouldn't know. We've never done it.
That's wild. So you guys, I mean, you play some of your own originals, yes, but you also play a lot, you know, a fair amount of covers too, and they aren't covers that everyone would know because not everyone is super familiar with all the blues music. But is this just something that you guys kind of just know all the same songs? So if somebody calls one out, you're kind of like, yeah, I could probably play that.
It's not that we all know the same songs, but we all speak the same language. So we can just kind of pick up what the other ones are doing and just kind of go, you know. So, I mean, those guys, you know, Dwight, you know, the drummer has been playing professionally for 60 years. So, and Pat's, you know, been playing for 40 plus. So, yeah, we just can figure it out on the bandstand.
That's awesome.
And then once you do it once, I mean, you kind of know what you're doing and go from there.
Have there ever been any times where you tried something and you're like, well, that didn't work out? Or do you guys ever kind of laugh your way through some mistakes every now and then?
Oh, there's, certainly mistakes or whatever, but it's really not that complicated, I guess. So sometimes things don't work out like the way I had it in my head or whatever. But I can't think of any. I mean, rarely, if ever, has there been just like a complete, fall on our face kind of deal.
Wild. That's pretty cool.
So, I mean, it works out to some degree. It works. Just maybe not ideal. Maybe it's not ideal, but then we kind of can figure it out. If something's a little bit more complex, or I had a certain kind of part in mind or a certain kind of feel in mind that doesn't come off right away. Well, then after the gig or whatever, we just talk about it, and I say, hey, for this song we played, I have in mind it's going to go like this or whatever, and then next time it's fine. So.
All right. Okay. All right. So it's kind of like you're making a pizza regardless. It's just maybe the toppings. You're just going to choose different toppings next time.
Yeah.
Analogies.
That's right.
That's pretty awesome. So that's really cool. You also did another album that was mostly instrumental, but and I heard you tell a little bit of this story on the guitar department, but like it's called Almost Made It. What's the deal with the name?
Well, I mean, on the surface, it's like I wanted to do an instrumental record, and we almost made it, right? Because I was ended up wanting to have a certain amount of tracks, and I was one short, and so I do have the last track on there is vocals. But I don't know. I sort of feel like I've, in my career and just in my life in general, I feel like it's kind of like a self-deprecating thing. It's like there's been a lot of situations where I just like almost got it, almost got it right. Like I almost made it to like a goal or whatever, and just not quite or whatever. So and I kind of feel like that's been my career in general. I've come really close to doing some like really great things, just haven't quite pulled it off or whatever. So it's just kind of a little shot at myself, I guess.
Well, at least you got a little humility, but it's fun too because like. You think about like how many goals you probably did hit, Do you have your goals changed over time?
Well, they've changed in a sense that I don't have any anymore because I think that that's kind of a trap. So that's something that my thinking has evolved in a lot of ways. When I was younger, I thought like, well, if I can get like this kind of gig or if I can get this or that, then I've sort of made it, quote unquote, or I accomplished this goal or whatever. But I think that's kind of for me at least, kind of a short-sighted way to look at things. And I've sort of decided that I use this, like I said earlier, I use this art to express myself, right? So the goal is just to make art for making art's sake. And I look at it as like it's every day for the rest of my life regardless. I'm trying to get better at something. So I'm trying to, with a lot of things in my life, but music especially, I'm trying to take a more of a process-oriented approach instead of a results-oriented approach, right? So instead of thinking about like, I want to achieve this or this or this or this, I think of every day as like a process in growing as a musician. And there's necessarily no end goal. It's like I said, it's every day for the rest of my life. So if there was an end goal, that would imply that like, okay, if I play Carnegie Hall, then it's over, right? I would just stop.
Yeah.
Well, that's not, I mean, even if that happened, that's only the tip of the iceberg, right? It's every day for the rest of my life. So I'm just trying to take a more process-oriented approach. Honestly, I was driving myself crazy trying to get to, what I thought was a point in my career of X, Y, Z or whatever. And I think maybe that's just kind of a young man's, short-sighted approach, I guess, for me personally. I understand that can be very helpful for people to sort of grow in whatever they do. But for me, that process-oriented approach has really been freeing in a lot of ways. It allows me to sort of, like I said, make art for the sake of making art, which isn't that the whole point? I'm trying to express myself. Like, this is why we do this, or this is why I do it, or whatever. So that's kind of the approach I've been trying to take, I guess.
That's awesome. I mean, like,
so yeah, like I said, my goals have changed because I don't really have any goals anymore. It's just make art.
I had heard a saying once that says like, we never actually ascend to our goals. We always fall to our systems. And I feel like that's like literally what you're explaining. 'Cause you're just like, I have this thing I do now where every single day I just practice and get better, and I play for the sake of playing, and I'm having fun doing it, and I just want to do it because I just want to do it. And that's the only, like, that's your system now. And that is like, do you think that's helped you change how you, like, do you think it's helped you get quote unquote better?
Absolutely.
Changing.
I think it's absolutely. And I don't necessarily think it's, well, saying it helped me get better would be like, that's like, I want to say the tip of the iceberg or whatever, again, use that same analogy, but it's made me monumentally better. And what I mean is, like, not just from an X's and O's standpoint, it's like, oh, now I know these chords or whatever, but just my ability to express myself freely in the moment is light years ahead of where it was, in my opinion, some years ago, when all I was worried about was like getting this next gig or making this money or whatever. My ability to be connected with my instrument and express myself, for me, has gotten, like I said, monumentally better, night and day in my mind.
Do you feel like,
and maybe it's the kind of thing, it was like, maybe as a listener that doesn't come through, but like I said, if what I'm trying to do is express myself, feeling like any sort of restrictions or whatever on how I express myself, if those have been removed, then it's just open. I feel way more open in that situation.
All right. So it's like you're increasing your vocabulary, maybe, in a sense,
Well, absolutely. I mean, it certainly increasing my vocabulary, but just my ability to get on that plane immediately and in all situations. Like, I don't know, maybe musicians like this or artists of any kind, but I've come across these people in my life, typically in the music world, but like I said, it applies to all art, that they just seem to be operating on another plane. You know what I mean? They just are able to access this other dimension, like, almost instantaneously.
Yeah.
Right. And I feel like, since I've sort of changed my way of thinking, I certainly wouldn't put myself in that category or whatever, but I feel like I'm light years closer to being able to do that.
Okay.
Because I don't have any restrictions anymore. I don't have any, like, everything I do is going to be towards this goal or whatever. I can just go, you know what I mean? Without worrying about, like, is this thing that I'm doing now, is that going towards this goal or is it going towards this goal or whatever? It's just, making art.
Okay, this is going to sound crazy, because while we were talking about all this, it made me think like something parallel. So do you think there is like this inverse relationship possibly between like chasing a goal and quote unquote getting better? The example I will give you is, like, I know some people who can get gigs literally every free moment of their life when they're not like working a job or with their family, and that's all they do. So they and I'm not trying to say they're not getting any better, but they like found a way where they're like, I'm X amount good, and that's good enough to play as many shows as I want to and get paid as much as I want to, and I'm okay with that. And they like never sit down and practice, quote unquote, anymore. They just show up, and maybe they'll learn a new song, maybe they'll write something new, but they're never actually like increasing their skill set. Do you think there's like some sort of like relationship to what you were talking about with like that?
Maybe so. I mean, it seems like it could foster some complacency or whatever.
Maybe that's the word I'm thinking of.
Yeah, for me, it's like, I just feel like if I listen back on my older playing or whatever, however many X amount of years ago or whatever, to me, it feels like I'm searching for something, and it feels like what I hear is like restriction. Like, I feel tight. It sounds tight. Like, I'm not fully just like letting go. Okay. Because for whatever reason, I'm worried about something along some avenue. Whether it's like, if I'm playing a part in the studio, it's like, oh, I got to get this part right or whatever. But to me, I want to focus more on just being in the moment and sort of letting go and expressing myself. And I've gotten to the point where it's like, I don't give a shit anymore, man. Like, I just will play. I just want to play. You know what I mean? Like, that's all that matters. I'm not trying. I don't care about like impressing anybody or, wowing people or like getting something just right or whatever. It's about what happens in the moment.
Wow. Okay. So now this feels like something I resonate with for sure, because when I first figured out how to play the guitar, it was like the whole world had unlocked. There's like, you're learning things so fast when you first like break into figuring out how the guitar works that like there's no limits. And there was this weird window of like a year or so where it's just like, if I watch somebody do it, it's like, well, that's possible. And then you like sit down, you're like, it's in this key, and you start to like mow it down, and you're like, it just takes time, but like I've felt a little bit of that, like uninhibited, like I don't care what anybody thinks, I'm up here having fun. There are some times though where like I feel like if I play with certain people, it's like this didn't sound heavy enough, or I didn't play fast enough, or this, there are like sometimes those things where I feel kind of like pigeonholed in areas where I just maybe I don't feel comfortable. It's like, it's just kind of fun that like I feel like that's maybe sort of like a parallel to what you're talking about. I mean, it's not the same thing, but
no, I agree. And there's certainly circumstances where I feel like maybe I'm not the right fit for whatever project is going on or whatever, speaking to your point. But I guess instead of me trying to be right for some project or band or whatever, it's like, well, I'm going to go ahead and be myself, and I'm going to play the way that I play and the way that I want to express myself. And if it works for this project or whatever, great. Otherwise, like, I got the name of somebody else that might be a better fit.
Okay. All right.
You know what I mean? So I guess, I don't know if that's kind of exactly what you're referring to, but, yeah, it's certainly very freeing to sort of take those restrictions off yourself. And it's almost like not even about playing like the right notes or playing in the right key or whatever. Like those I consider to be X's and O's, and sometimes I'll play stuff that is way outside, it's like doesn't make any sense, but it's like, that's how I'm expressing myself in the moment. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but you got to go for it, man. I mean, what do we do? What's the point? We got to fucking let it rip, Pete,
Dude,
why we roll out of bed in the morning,
Yeah, it's true. You got to hit the ground running. Otherwise, what's the point? I mean, that makes me think about like the deeper you get into learning music, the more you realize like all these rules that were set up to show you how it works, like don't actually matter. And that
doesn't mean anything.
That always upsets me so much, especially like with the guitar. People with the guitar have zero music background at all, and they're just like, I don't know, this just sounds good. They didn't care anything about music theory or nothing. And like what did I was learning about like playing like chromatic weird stuff, because I think like chromatic stuff is funny because you're just like, let's just play all the notes, nothing matters, Okay, so like playing ahead of the key or behind the key was like something where like, yeah, you can actually just like fall behind the key a half step and it sounds like total garbage, but as long as you go back to instep, all of a sudden it's just like, oh, now that pattern sounds good, and it resolved itself, and that's why it sounds good, even though you were just horribly out of key. And like jazz guitar, I don't know, the whole thing is just mind blowing to
me. When you talk about musically, like pitch, like a certain note or in a certain key or whatever, pitch is like one small component of music, right? Because you also have timing, rhythm.
Yeah.
You have rest, right? So all this stuff. So that's what I'm saying. Like you can, we're maybe going down a different trail than what we started on here or whatever. That's cool. But you can maybe play a note that is not technically, right. But like I said, the pitch is only one component of music. So anything can work at any time. It's just a matter of like I said, rhythmically, how much time are you spending on that wrong note compared to maybe a note that's more inside or whatever. Mm-hmm. And think about rest between notes. That's the old Miles Davis quote, right? Is like music is what's between the notes.
Yeah.
So, all that goes into the pizza, so to speak.
Yeah. I feel like the rhythm is something that's hard to teach, and like adding rests to solos is something that's hard to remember, maybe.
Well, there's no accounting for taste, right? That's a taste thing.
Ooh,
and
okay. That's a good point to bring up. This is all subjective.
Yeah, well, I mean, kind of. I would argue. I mean, you could.
That's a classic Matt Woods take right there. I don't know about that.
Even a baby knows what works and what doesn't.
Yes,
Musically.
that's
A toddler can tell you what sounds good and what doesn't. So, I think people have their preconceived, notions based on. I mean, we're all just products of our experience or whatever, in this life. But some of that stuff is, like, to me, good is good and bad is bad, and we know what it is. If we really look down in our lizard brain, we know what's good and what's bad musically.
It's true.
If that makes any sense, but
sometimes bad's good. I don't know.
Sometimes bad can be very good, yeah, and vice versa, right?
Yeah, I mean, you gotta think about all the things we do in our lives, and there's been times where it's just like, probably shouldn't have done that, but it was fun at the time. That's some of the music
that's a perfect analogy for, or a parallel to what we're talking about here. It's like living in the moment, right? That's what we should strive for in my opinion, all aspects of our life.
Yeah, all honesty. Yeah, for sure. Okay, so that's what this podcast is all about, ladies and gentlemen. The tangent. That's what we're looking for every episode. So I do want to say you were on the guitar department with Joe Alton, which is actually how I discovered that the show was a show. I don't know how I did not know it existed, but I saw like something of yours came up on a YouTube feed once for me, and I was like, what the hell is this? So I clicked on it, and then I did a little research and found out what it was. And that was a fun interview. I watched your most recent one on there. One of the things I learned on there, shout out Joe Alton if he's watching.
Hey, Joe.
But you don't like singing? Like, you basically started singing as a virtue of just like, if I want to play more music, I can do that if I sing.
Yeah, I don't care for it. I wish I never had to do it again, but unfortunately, like, just as a person who's like just a guitar player is not going to work as much as a person who's willing to sing and play guitar or whatever. It's like this, it's like the old joke of like, well, let's have this guy in the band, he's got the PA, or whatever. It's like he's got a van, so he's, we'll have him in the band or whatever. So I just, from when I first started out, I wanted to work as much as possible, and that's, one of the reasons why not only did I accept the fact that I was going to have to sing and like front bands or whatever, but I taught myself how to play as a solo guitarist and as like a traditional kind of like lead guitar player, you know what I mean? So I taught myself how to play like electric lead guitar. I taught myself how to play, well, not myself, but with the help of other people, obviously, how to play fingerstyle so I could myself, so I could play solo gigs. I could play full band gigs. I can play gigs as a duo, as a trio, like whatever, just because I wanted to take every opportunity I could to work as much as I could.
Yeah. I mean, I can vouch for that. Like, play a lot of shows with Jesse Wilson. I mean, I play a lot of shows with Jesse Wilson, but I am like the added notes. I'm the extra. I'm the sprinkles on top. I'm not. Nobody's calling me saying I want to book Jesse Wilson. So it totally makes sense that like if you can sing, you're probably going to get more bookings. Did it take you a while to figure out how to find your voice? Because I will say, it's distinctive amongst most other people that are singing around here.
Yeah, all this stuff takes a long time, man. It's like it took a long time, and it was really bad for a long time. It's just you find, whether it's vocally or musically or on guitar or whatever your instrument is or whatever, it takes a long time to find your voice, yes, and figure out, again, how to express yourself and not just try to be, trying to sound like somebody else or whatever. I mean, that's the thing that I think everybody, it's natural at first, it's like I wanted to sound, from a guitar standpoint, I wanted to sound like the first on a record. Like, to me, it's the holy grail of guitar playing. There's never been.
You gotta say that one more time.
Never been better than the electric guitar on Freddie King's first album, Let's Hide Away and Dance with Freddie King. It's the greatest electric guitar ever recorded, and that's what I wanted to sound like. And it took me a long time to, obviously I learned all that stuff and I learned how to do it, and that developed over time into what I'd like to think is sort of my own, voice on the instrument. But singing is the same way. Yes.
It's funny. I play Going Down. When I go to jams, that's like the song that, like, if anybody asks me to play and sing, that's the one.
Yeah, it's big jams. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny because I will go places and I'll go to a lot of jams where people like aren't familiar with it, which like kind of blows me away, but at the same time kind of doesn't, because people will be like, let's play this song, and I'll be like, I have no clue what that is, and they're like, what are you talking about? So again, it just comes down to what people are used to. But yeah, that song was like always one of my favorites, and like his guitar tone is very, very distinctive though.
Well, that's late. That's later Freddie. I'm referring to early Freddie, which is a whole. Actually, he almost sounds like a totally different player, which again speaks to the whole thing we've been talking about, is sort of evolving your own voice over time, or things just change over the years. Maybe you have what sounds good to you now maybe didn't sound good to you back then, or whatever. So yeah, it's a very different. The early stuff is even very different than the stuff you're referring. I mean, I love it all, but the early Freddie is my thing. Yeah. Did
you have music you listened to that you don't listen to anymore? Was there like a secret like emo phase you went through growing up or anything?
No, not. I mean, I was really into like what I call traditional American music, kind of from my earliest memories. Although I did go through a phase where I just like, when I listen back on some of this stuff, and it's like, it holds up. I mean, I'll stand by it. Like, I loved Sublime, man, and that kind of stuff, like that sort of reggae ripoff, pop reggae or whatever from the 90s or whatever. It's like, I'll go back and listen to it once in a while, and it's like, yeah, I can get behind that. So I went through that phase, I guess. But no, I've just been really into, like I said, sort of traditional American music for most of my memories.
I can feel you on the reggae ripoff. Like 311 was my choice on that, my flavor, So I mean, I went and saw them a whole bunch. That was, for a long time, I was like, I celebrate the whole catalog. It's amazing, And going back and listening to it, it's a lot of it still holds up. A lot of those bands, it's just not your typical type of music, so it lends itself to a kind of a different flavor than you're used to with most stuff. But I mean,
I can definitely. It's funny because I can like definitely listen to it or listen to what I was listening to in the the early '90s or whatever, and I can think like, yeah, I can understand why I liked this at that phase of my life or whatever. But again, like I love like '90s hip hop too, and I still listen to that stuff, and it's like it's great, So
there's part of me that thinks that like bear with me on this, but like the rhythms that come out of 90s hip hop, I feel like that influences people in this weird way that they don't know it influences them. So like, it's going to be hard to describe, but I feel like I mentioned earlier, like it's hard to teach rhythm. I feel like some people either have it or you don't. It's the whole like clapping on 1 and 3 argument, you know who you are. Actually, you don't know who you are because you don't know you're doing it.
You don't know who you are. That's the problem. Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like that's a thing where like, there's certain types of music where it's like you either have this thing where your head bobs to it, or like people just don't understand that heads can bob to music. And I feel like 90s hip hop was like definitely one of those, like either lyrically or like with turntables and things like that, with the beat. I don't know. That was always kind of like intriguing to me. I remember growing up and there was this guy that was like just this huge metalhead, and I liked metal music growing up because they play fast and they have long hair and they're super cool and whatever. They're wearing their fancy shoes. But yeah, he was just like, oh, I love 90s hip hop. And it's like, why? And he's just like, oh, it's the rhythm. You can like inject it into things and not know you're doing it. And you could just like absorb it. He was one of those guys that was just on a different musical level, like we talked about earlier. But anyway, sorry, going down a tangent. I did see something recently. You were on Blues Blast magazine. What's that all about? Can we talk about that?
Yeah, it's a sort of a national publication about blues, I guess, and they did a feature article on me here, whenever it was, a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, it was in October.
Yeah, very nice.
That's super cool. And you were on the cover. Like there was about like 2 weeks there where like I I kept seeing this like over and over and over again. I'm like, this is so awesome. You know, it's one of those things
my big stupid face was right on there.
Yeah. Oh man, was that something like they contacted you and were like, hey, let's do this, or is that something where like have you ever been on their radar before that you know of, or
yeah, I'd been on the radar. I mean, I'd never had a feature done on me, but I'd been nominated for actually a couple of their sort of awards they do annually just over the years and things. So I think, yeah, was kind of on their radar. And then I ran into the publisher. I think the picture that they used on the magazine was taken at this gig that I ran into him at. And I think that, you know, he had mentioned, you know, oh, someday we'd like to do, maybe you'd be great to do a feature on or whatever. And I was like, okay, yeah, sure. You know, love to do it, Bob, you know, or whatever. And sure enough, they did eventually. So it was a nice thing. Yeah.
That's super cool. Like, I don't know. I feel like this is going to sound cheesy because this is coming from me sitting in the podcast chair, but I feel like literally like just talking with people has gotten me farther than most of my playing has.
I'm telling you, and I say this to anybody that'll listen, like 90% is you just show up. Like you're absolutely right. Just be in the room. You know what I mean? And you know, I'm in a phase of life now where, like I said, with family and whatnot, where I can't necessarily do that as much as I'd like to be. But when I was really hitting it hard, and I mean, I still hit it hard, but when I was really really had my, you know, the gas on the floor, so to speak, is that I just showed up and I would just go to events. I'd go to gigs that I wasn't playing at. I would go to these, even if I would drive to like Minneapolis or Kansas City to go to some event that I knew I had some friends at that I just wanted to sort of be in the room with or whatever. It's like that stuff adds up over, you know, decades of doing it for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, this is going to sound so cheesy, but like most of the time, and I'm going to like just throw it out, like I'll go out on an intermission and just be like, I'm going to go take a smoke break and I'll go outside, whatever. Sorry, everybody. Sorry, Mom. Didn't mean to admit it on the podcast. Sorry, Mom. Yeah. But I'll go outside, and then like the last show I played with Jesse, I like just stayed inside because I'm like, whatever. I'll just stay in here and talk with some people. And these people were like talking with me, and they're like, oh, so like, what do you do? And I'm like, oh, I have a podcast, and I talk to musicians. I've actually like, you know, talked to a few people around the area and whatever. And they're like, oh, what's it called? And then before you know it, they're like, oh, is this your pod? And they like pull it up on their phone. It's like, it was literally that easy, just opening up a conversation with somebody. And like, you know, whatever, my project that I have on the side had some exposure. It's like, it literally just took that. And it's, I don't know, it's kind of weird. I think that some of that's also maturing, where like the younger I was, I just figured like if I played the show, people would just be like, oh my gosh, these guys are awesome. I'm going to take my time out of my day to search everything I can about them and find them out. It's not exactly how it happens.
No, it's more like, it's more important to kind of connect with people like on a like personal level. You know, I've gotten a lot of work in this business just because I'm like, I think I'm good to work with, you know, I mean, mm-hmm. And that, you know, you get referred for certain things because like, oh, this guy's good, and he's also like, you know, okay to hang out with, and he shows up on time and he's not drunk and whatever. And it's like, again, you get, you know, build a reputation, you make connections and things, like just like any other job or whatever. Like over time, it really is really important to do that. Yeah. And you know what, I think a lot of, unfortunately, in the modern world we live in, especially with young people who just stare at their phone all day, it's like you're not going to get it that way, unfortunately, you know. No. You sort of need to be, I mean, in this digital world, it's still, ironically, we're talking over, you know, the internet or whatever, but it is still really important to be in the room. Yeah, as we do, yeah. The irony is not lost on me. No, I mean, it's really kind of fun, though, because, like, I don't know, I just think about the lessons I learned. I wish I would have learned them faster, you know, because like I said, at old shows, it was just like you'd get done playing, it's like, well, guess what, I'm going to spend the rest of my time like in the corner of the room or outside or something, you know. You'd play a set and then the next band goes up on stage and you're like, yeah, what's up, hey guys, cool, they're awesome, and you're like basically avoiding like just talking to people, and you're missing that whole connection thing. I don't know, it's something I learned later, and I'm still like practicing, I guess. The benefit again is like I have this podcast, so I have the ability to like talk to people, but I don't know, it's just kind of one of those weird things. I just never thought too much about it until recently. Maybe that's just relaunching the podcast is like stirring up more emotions over the last year. It's just kind of weird, but well, you can't like force perspective, right? I mean, it will come to you when you're ready for it. You can't make yourself sort of have experiences that you haven't had.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You have to be open to it and ready for it, and at a time in your life where you can receive it. Because I'm sure people told you, take any part of your life or whatever. I'm sure somebody gave you some advice when you were younger that you just were not ready to hear, and it didn't sink in. Whereas if somebody said it to you now, it'd be like, could be life changing or whatever. You know what I mean?
Okay.
You weren't ready to receive it, and that's just part of growing in life, I think.
Yeah. There's probably also an inverse to that, where somebody gave me advice when I was young and I took the advice because it was good advice when I was young, but it's probably not so good now,
It's not good. Yeah, it's not good advice now.
It's probably not great advice. All right. So this is something I just we're getting close to the end of this. I just got a couple open-ended questions and quick questions. Blues music, do you think that it is more difficult for people to attach themselves to blues music? Do you feel like the younger generation do you think they get it? Is it a thing that people are gravitating towards in the same way they used to? Because I feel like it used to be a huge deal. A lot of towns had blues societies and things like that. And I'm not saying they're going away, but I'm just saying they don't seem to be as prevalent as they used to.
I think this music is a cornerstone of American culture, and the way I view it is kind of like it's like a wall with ivy on it now. There's just ivy on it now. So it's not as apparent as it once was, but it's there, and it kind of always will be there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So there's definitely been times throughout history where certain things are very popular and they're not so popular, and they're popular again, and whatever. So I don't think that it's especially popular in the modern world, but I also think there's just a lot of distractions for people to have. But I think it's an important enough part of our culture, whether we realize it or not, that it'll sort of always be around, if that makes sense.
Yeah. 100%. Like you mentioned, it's just like a cornerstone. It makes me think too, and this is going to sound dumb, I work in a marketing place now, so I think about a lot of different factors of music and things. I just look at things a little bit differently than I used to before I did. But I was thinking to myself, while I was writing questions and driving home today, I was like, blues music might be the most palatable of most all of the music. I feel like you could show it to a grandma and she'd like it. You could show it to a kid and she'd like it. You could show it to, middle-aged me and I would like it. It feels like the one that would transcend the most, maybe from coast to coast, if that makes any sense. Even though, like I said, I'm not, I'm not saying it's not popular. It's just that there's not as many, there's not crops of blues bands in every town. It's around here, it's country bands, but it still feels like it doesn't matter. You could go into a country bar and play blues and people would just lose their minds. They'd be like, oh yeah.
It all comes from the same place,
Mm-hmm.
So you can call it whatever you want, but that's what it is.
Yeah.
It's all built off that cornerstone.
Yeah. Okay. So another question, do you think you need special gear to play guitar? Example, other than the fact that I'm a right-handed guitarist and you're left-handed, if you just walked up to my setup, do you think you could just still sound like you?
I'd like to think that. I mean, that's, if I go back to sort of what we were talking about earlier and how I express myself through music, it shouldn't really matter what amp I'm playing through or whatever.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So let's caveat this. If you get an amp, whatever, but if you had to have one piece of gear that was just this is the one that I would absolutely have to make sure that I am the most comfortable playing, regardless of what any of the other gear is. Is it a pedal? Is it an amp? Is it a guitar?
If I have a decent guitar, I'll make it work. And that's something that's changed over time too, because when I was younger, if you're playing a gig with backline or whatever, it's always there's always a lot of anxiety about oh, what's the amp going to be? Or am I going to have my pedal board or whatever? But it's interesting. Over the years, I truly don't care anymore. If it works, I'll make it work. You know what I mean? If the amp runs or whatever, as long as I've got a guitar that is playable, I'll figure something out.
Yeah, I always think when I was playing, it was the pedal board was my safety blanket. If this thing was in between me and whatever guitar I'm playing and whatever amp I'm playing, I feel like I could make the noise the way I wanted it to. But like I would go to like jam nights and things like that, or you'd go to shows where it's like, yeah, just come up, plug your thing in, nothing's mic'd up. And it's like, well, I'm not going to drag all this stuff up here I'm just going to plug in and just dial it into one channel and call it good enough, you know? And that kind of taught me to just kind of let go of that safety blanket of.
Yeah, I agree. Like over the years, that stuff, like all the things you think you need kind of fall away.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I don't want to sound like a prick or whatever, but like, I'd like to think that I'm the music. You know what I mean? Like I'm the instrument, so to speak, right? It's what's coming out of me that is that thing, you know, or that's the hope at least.
Yeah.
Know?
I mean, that goes back to that. I mean, this is adjacent, but like Eddie Van Halen argument, he always had that sound that everyone couldn't figure out how his sound was. And then they'd get a hold of his gear and it just sounded like them playing on Eddie's gear. It didn't sound like Eddie, you know? And then Eddie would pick their stuff up and it sounds like Eddie on their stuff. And it's like, it's Eddie. He's the one making the thing make the noise, you know?
There's an anecdote or whatever I heard about. I mean, maybe who knows if this actually happened or if it was really this person or whatever, but somebody came up to Chet Atkins and after a gig and complimented him and said how great his guitar sounded. And he pointed over at the guitar that was sitting there on a stand and said, "I don't hear anything." You know, it's like, "I don't hear anything."
That's true.
So the point is that, you know, and that sounds like kind of a dick thing to say or whatever, but the point is that it was him. It's him.
Yeah.
It's not the guitar. You know.
I mean, very objectively, absolute, like it's 100% true. I mean, I was thinking about like, yeah, I could see where you'd be like, I don't want to sound like a dick, but this, you know, it's like, yeah, but it is like 100% it is. It has to be you. I mean, that was always one of my arguments when people were first starting and they're like, I'm nervous to play around other people or to play, you know, it's just like, just nobody else can play the things you play, regardless of like, you know, if you're a 5 on the talent level or a 3 or a 10, like you play things the way you play them and you're always going to be wowed by somebody in a lower level and a higher level at some point because they're doing something you're not doing because their voice is different than yours. Mm-hmm. I don't know. All right. Let's see here. What's the best piece of advice another musician has given you? This could be from younger years or we were just talking about advice. Have you ever gotten a really good piece of advice? I mean,
I guess I couldn't go back and put my finger on exactly who told me it, but yeah, this is what we were just talking about, how important it is to be yourself. You know, and I've sort of adopted that as a, you know, I always joke like with my wife about it or whatever. It's like, I'm going down with the ship. You know, it's like, I know a lot of musicians that try to be something that they think somebody else wants, or, well, I'm playing in front of this crowd, so I should probably play like this, or they want to hear these songs, so I'm going to play these songs or whatever. But it's like, to me, there's nothing more important. Again, the whole idea here is I'm just trying to express myself. That's what art is for. And to me, just being myself is what's important and doing what I want to do.
All right.
So,
yeah.
I mean, that was like I said, I couldn't tell you who told me that, but I remember that was something I heard fairly early on, you know.
I think I already know the answer to this. But do you think people can see that in an artist or a musician of sorts, where it's like you can tell that this person put on the costume and played the show the way they thought everyone wanted the costume and the show to be? You think people can tell that? Like, imagine, like, I'm just throwing out a for instance, like we're going to play a country show, so I put up a button-up flannel shirt so I look like I just got done farming and I got on my Sunday best and I go out and play a show. Like, if that's not me, do you think people can see that and tell that I'm just going out there and disingenuously engaging with them, if that makes sense?
I don't think everybody can see it, but it's because they're not paying attention. Like, I think if somebody is paying attention to the world around them, they can probably tell if you're faking it.
Yeah. I don't know. I always wondered that, because like I feel like part of art is like curating exactly what you want everyone to see, which like I see the merit in it, but I also feel like there's merit in just somebody being genuine too. if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, and that's, I'm talking about what's right for me. So like there's certainly people that could make that argument like, well, I'm going to curate exactly what I want people to hear. And certainly music is made like that, because you can listen to some records and you don't hear any hiccups of any kind, no trace of almost there being a human being there or whatever. But listen to my music, that is certainly not what's going on, because there's all kinds of like, whatever you want to call them, just like
I call it breathability. That's what I always said about your music. It has breathability.
Okay, that sounds pretty good. That's kind of like sounds like a compliment.
That kind of sounds like a compliment. No, I mean, like some of that came from like I remember like listening to songs and like let's say just for instance you listen to on Spotify, you listen to an album and then it replays a random song after the album. And what if it's the same exact song that the album ended on? Sometimes you'd be able to hear the ending of it back to back with the beginning of it, and you can tell that you're like really wrenching on a guitar because it's like slightly out of tune by the end of the song compared to at the beginning. It sounds, or like it's snappier at the beginning than it is at the end because you're, I don't know, not like fatigued, but it's like the end of the song, or like the tempo is like maybe 1 or 2 beats different because it breathed a little bit.
Yeah.
There's something about me growing up where I was like, I hate this about music. Where the older I get, I'm like, this might be my favorite thing about music. Is like,
well, because it's like having a conversation with somebody, right? I mean, we could talk about something, and I'll get all worked up and fired up or whatever, and start talking a little bit faster or whatever. Or maybe sometimes I'll be a little bit more pensive with a response or whatever. And I mean, it's part of being a human being, man. It's like I don't. And for me, there's all this AI stuff going on and all this kind of thing, but you need a human being for art. It's just the way it is. I mean, it's a product of human beings, so it's just part of being human in my mind.
All right, we'll check the AI question off. No, I'm just kidding.
We can go there if you want. But
No. That's a touchy subject. I've touched on it a couple times, but I don't mind it, but I'm not going to use it in the capacity that it can be used in. Like I view it as a tool, and not every job needs a hammer. Hammers are probably one of the most useful tools you can have, but it just, you're not everything needs a hammer, man.
I would 100% agree with that. Yep.
So, that's pretty much all I've got for you, Matt. Don't go away, but thank you very much for joining me on the podcast.
Thanks a lot for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, there you have it. A little bit of a hiccup there in the beginning with some technology issues, but we got it. And this episode was great. That's all I got to say. I had a blast talking with Matt. I could have just kept recording and talking, but we discussed it in this episode. Busy people, he's got a family man, and he's not going to spend all of his time sitting around talking to goofballs like me about music all day long. But it's super fun when I do get the chance to go see him live, when I get the chance to talk to him. Like I said in the intro, I'm always willing to lend an ear to Matt when he's gonna shed some advice, and like I said in the intro, even if that's not advice that you would take, you definitely have to understand where he's coming from. And that's one of my favorite things about him, is he'll just be like, I feel this way because of this, and you're like, oh yeah, experiences led to that. And as we get older, our perceptions and what we want out of life changes. And I feel like this one's, I don't know, it's just kind of fun to know, like, as we've changed over the years, how everything changes. And he's aware of that, and it's really kind of cool to see it kind of come out in his music and change with the times and change how he's going to do things. And that's what everyone should be doing. I guess if you're okay with being complacent, that's cool too, I guess. I feel like music's so weird, it's so fun. It's what we're all doing out there. If you're listening to this as a musician, or even if you're just somebody that goes to music, there's no right or wrong way, I guess, to eat the Reese's. As long as you're doing what you want to do, I guess you're doing what you want to do, and that's the right thing. So, great episode with Matt. Go check him out online. Check him out live. If you've never seen Matt live, it's totally worth checking out. MattWoodsMusic.com. All the social media links and stuff are going to be down below as well. So thank you, Matt, for joining me on the podcast. Thank you all for listening. Thank you to the Fort Dodge Fine Arts Association. And be sure you check out everything at audiblefarm.com, at Audible Farm on all the social medias. Go to the YouTube, hit subscribe, share this episode with somebody. If you made it this far into it and you liked it this much, just go ahead and share it with somebody. Hey, you got to hear this awesome conversation Matt Woods had with somebody. It's super cool, or whatever, but yeah, everything's there. Shop.audiblefarm.com for the shop. T-shirts and hoodies and stickers. I've got hats. If you guys want Audible Farm hats, just hit me up at a show somewhere. Say, hey, bring a hat, and I'll bring a hat for you. So that's how you get hats. Otherwise, Patreon for episodes a day early. That's basically it. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share. Thank you, everybody. Peace.